Hey guys, how's it going? It's your old man Randis here, and man who's working 6 days a week with barely any time and doing this at 2 in the morning. So this is about the nerfs that were proposed in an announcement on the Amazon game site or whatever about Lost Ark. I think these are completely terrible, and after reading like a bunch of forum boards and stuff and posts and like talking with some people in the community, it's really clear to me that a lot of people don't seem to understand that there's systems in the game that already teach you all the things that people don't seem to understand in the early runs of T1, T2. I don't have too much time to play, and even I have progressed like fairly okay. I'm currently roster 73 with 1010 eye level, and that's my highest character with very limited time to play each day, and 2 alts at 460 and 496, and that's it. Mostly I do 1 island a day, some Una's dailies tasks, and I think the big point of contention is like the Guardian raids getting nerfed in their HP. People seem to, for whatever reason, believe that like we're 50% harder than like other regions or whatnot. We're not actually. There's people who have debunked this already. I'll provide some links down below in the description. A person has done like a video uncutted edit, and if you can't do basic simple maths, I can't help you because we pretty much have the same version as Russia right now, and Russia is a nerf version of KR. So if we take this nerf, we're pretty much worse than Russia, and like the HP of the bosses essentially go down. I've read many arguments of people saying like, oh, it's too tedious or whatever, I can't be bothered to solve the mechanics over and over and whatnot. That is a skill of itself of like consistency and mastery essentially, and if you can't be bothered to do that, then honestly like, yeah, it's not going to get any better in like the T3 raids, and this game is probably isn't for you. That's pretty much it. Like, I am very happy to help and engage players who are willing to learn and adjust and get better, essentially. But like the people who are just hot-headed or egotistical and don't want to do that, I'm wasting time. They're wasting everybody else's time. They're just going to add to a problem in the later runs when like your damage isn't even the problem anymore. It's just about not dying to mechanics. Especially like when I've seen some of the later raids in KR where you have to memorize sequences. I think I'm going to struggle with that a lot, and I don't want to be like worrying about basic mechanics and stuff early on when I can do all of this in the early raids right now as mistakes and get used to it so that I understand all these things as natural when those later contents come. So like if the nerf goes through, who's to say the later content is going to get nerfed too? And then like, the game's been refined for 3 years in Korea, so we're not running on some retroactive, unrefined patch. We're running on the refinements that Korea has had for 3 years. They went from a horrible state of game into what it is today, and this is like really fast. Game has been out for less than a month. Most MMOs, you don't reach endgame within like less than a month, let alone a week from just swiping a credit card. So like you have that option, but I'm like so far like early game, mid game, Lost Ark provides that challenge of an end game that I would see in other games very early on, and I think this is like really acceptable compared to the people who are for the nerfs. It's kind of weird. If they're like saying like, oh, Guardian raids takes too long or whatever, I play 1 to 2 hours a day in the evenings, and I do my raids in 5 minutes to 6 minutes, and if I can't beat it like fast because I'm doing like the similar eye levels, I choose the easier one that I'm overgeared and just smash it in the same tier. I might get less rewards, but I'm not wasting my time failing and doing like reruns hours and hours on end. I'm done within 8 to 16 minutes, and that's it. And then I move on and go do other things. This is why my progression is steady and forward. It's not locked behind something, just running something for 4 hours and failing with pugs over and over and over. On top of that, like, you probably want to run it solo at first just to trial and see what the boss does, because it scales towards 1 player HP instead of 4. And if you can survive the boss solo, well then guess what? Your success rate in the 4-player party will probably increase quite a lot. As well as that, knowing mechanics and how things operate early on, the game teaches you all this. Okay, the game teaches you all these things, like, you know, chain skill, battle items, stagger, and everything, like all of these, they tell you how to learn. You get a reward of aesthetics at the end. Advanced, how to counterattack, what is weak point. I've seen people like in T3 who don't even understand what destruction or weak point is or how to counter a boss. It's ridiculous. How can you be at end game and still not know the game's basics? It's kind of weird when I watch my friend stream in Discord and he's like doing a run with Armored Nakrasina, and this game literally teaches you how to counterattack. It tells you what to look out for, what skills to use, and then just read it. So it's just like this, right here. This flash blue and then counter, boom, stops. And that's it. Completed. The game thinks you're God. Okay? Even more so in a run if you can do this. Every class possesses this ability. You just have to read your skills and actually know. And that way you'll know how to counterattack. You can be a god. This is why gun lancers are so fucking good in later runs, because they can skip entire damage rates or entire mechanics from bosses. It's not DPS, it's like just mechanics checked, like being able to solve mechanics. Like, I'm not looking for a DPS check meter game and just trying to speed run through like bosses as fast as possible just because I couldn't be bothered, or it's whatever. This is not even gatekeeping. It's just simply like willingness to learn and being a like gamer. Really. Like, if that's the point of contention, then like we should all just like vote to have this game turn into AFK auto attack arena essentially. Like, why bother with mechanics? Don't develop neat stuff. Stop wasting time developing cool boss challenges and things and mechanics. Just delete all of it. Turn everybody into a DPS meter and that's it. That sounds like an awful time and is already abundant in a lot of other games, which Lost Ark I hope does not devolve into. Alright, so when you're doing Guardian raids, one of the things I want you to know, if you're not familiar with the game's systems and whatnot, T1, T2 is an acceptable place where you're like, you should make all your mistakes there and just like, just forehead, like, make all your mistakes there, literally. It's a great place to do it. I made plenty myself, and usually when I'm dead on the floor, I observe player, watch the boss, see what it's doing, learn its patterns and attacks and weaknesses and stuff. Even in the raid board here, right here, it says like their weakness, weak to water, weak to dark, weak to lightning, for instance. All these things here, weak to fire. So like opposite element is probably like dark or like earth or something like that. And then you probably want to attune your cards to percentage damage reduction. All elemental damage is good in general, but it's better to actually like put in specifics if you have the card sets, like fire damage reduction here, like 2, 4, 8, that's 8, 16. 16 is already more than this, so I could remove 2 of these. If I'm going to do Flame Fox Yoho, for instance, 16 plus 5, which is 19% damage reduction from all fire. So that's 1/5 of the damage gone. You'll survive easily. And then you just bring some battle items and work on it. So for instance here in Nakrasina, a lot of people have trouble with this lightning damn thing because they don't know they can break the tail. There's also an entire quest line that also tells you about every single boss. You just have to look for Guardian Raid Investigator Luna. She tells you and teaches you, quizzes you, provides you with affiliated battle items with each one, and you get gold rewards, 100 gold to 150 gold, and increases as you go further down. It's an entire quest line, gives you permanent stats, and I feel like a lot of people don't do this because when I was chatting with people on community boards and stuff, they had no idea. They're like, where the fuck does the game tell you mechanics? It's like, it doesn't tell you anywhere. I'm like, I read the very first quest and she told me like all the guardians live in their own map region or whatever. We should go on an investigation together. Is like, that's how it starts. And then you start with Ernal, the very first one. And then when you complete that and you talk to her, she's like, oh yeah, let's go like look up Lumeris or whatever. And all of a sudden you're playing Monster Hunter World online. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. And it's like the whole lore and story behind Vergris, the entire like first guardian giant or whatever that owns all of them. And I was like, this is great. And then I was like, wait, she tells you the weaknesses, the problems that like each boss has and whatnot, their dangerousness, tips and effects of like their special mechanic that you have to deal with. When it goes with Nakrasina, for instance, she gave me destruction bombs to blow up his tail. And then she was also like saying like, it's like, what's the what's the strategy you want to use for her, right? It's like a multiple choice question. You can fail it as much as you want, but eventually you got to select the correct one if you want to like get free shit. And pretty much it's like, oh, weak point. It's like, right. And then it's like, what skills do you want to use? Weak point skills. It's like, all right then. So you look up your board. I can't believe I have to like actually describe this. And you just look at your skills and you're like, stagger, low, oh, weak point skill right here. I guess I should use this. Weak point level 1. So it's like, this is the skill you would bring. You just want to like bring a shitload of weak point skills. So that like on the first tail drop, you could probably just smash the tail and break it. And if all 4 party members are in the same mentality, because they can fix their skills in the run too. They just go to the starting point and they can change their skill tree up. So even if you're in a pub party and you're like, hey, does everybody have like weak point skills? Like, we want to break its tail when it starts off. I'm not going to be toxic. I'm just going to be like, please bring destruction skills, as it will be incredibly helpful to the boss. So after the first stagger, you can go high stagger stuff, high stagger checks into skills that have high stagger. And then you go weak point. That's it. And you just bash the tail. And then once the tail blows up, he turns into a literal training dummy. And you can kill the boss sub like 6-7 minutes. in a party that actually understands this. That's all the difference is. The 50% HP nerf rumor is completely ridiculous. If you nerf the boss by whatever HP it has currently, these runs are just going to be DPS lame checks where people don't even care about mechanics anymore and just want to override it with pure damage, which is terrible. Like, this just becomes a DPS meter, and that means like all certain classes become irrelevant at some point, which is a terrible design like ripple effect. On top of that, trade skills and battle items become worthless because people will be using less items essentially, and there's less strategy involved, which means for the more complicated and later like exciting content that involves more complicated stuff than this is going to just be watered down and brain dead. I'm playing the game to be stimulated, not to get bored and trying to get through shit as fast as possible, thinking like I know everything when I don't. But these are like simple basics that the game teaches you and tells you about. As well, there's a lot of helpful players in the community, I've noticed, for the game's fresh state. It's 3 weeks in, there's a lot of helpful people trying to get people through some of these difficult mechanics. But I feel this needs to be said that, like, one, do the training room. Okay, it tells you about the basic operations and mechanics between the player and the boss. You as a tiny player can indeed like stop an entire gargantuan Godzilla looking monster from storming your team. In later raids and abyss dungeons, the ability to do this turns a boss away from wiping the party into becoming a patsy and a training dummy for a solid 4 seconds for the entire party of 8 people to wail on. You become literal champion god for knowing how to execute these basic mechanics. Okay, if you want the glory, that's what's required. So, on top of that, the questline, it starts with Urnal, right? If you lost it for whatever reason, or you didn't read the text, as probably 99% of the players didn't. I read a lot. People know this, but so you want to go to the Guardian raid board. You click map info, for instance. It should open a map. I don't know why it's not opening a map. Oh, it doesn't open a map. So it says Red Sand Desert there, right? Guardian raid area information. Red Sand Desert. So, map. Zoom out. Red Sand Desert. I think this was Arthitine. No results found. Well, that's terrible. Okay, so this one is a terrible example, but it's the first one. It's actually where it unlocks anyways. And I believe that's over here anyways. So Red Sand Desert. This is the Guardian raid map essentially. This example was terrible, but this is the first quest that should show up immediately when you're going through Arthitine and you unlock Guardian raids anyways. But most of the time people just miss the entire Guardian raid questline after that. So you want to go to the second one, which will be Lumeris next, and it's Foggy Ridge. So I'm pretty sure I could find Foggy Ridge. So Foggy Ridge, yeah, so Foggy Ridge is right here. So it's this island here. So you want to go to this island after you're done the Urnal one. And it's like, you know, no island token. I wonder if anybody actually just lands here and explores and wonders what's up. It's a Guardian raid map, and that's pretty much it. Like, you should probably have a quest icon somewhere like right here at the entrance. Purple exclamation mark. And each time you kill a Guardian, make sure you try and look for Luna for whatever, where she tells you in that quest line. And if you forget or you lost it for whatever reason, then you go to your Guardian raid board and just go down the bosses and you'd be like, oh, maybe I did the Lumeris one already. Let me check Icy Lagoros or whatever, right? Oh, Frosthaven. Like, where the hell is Frosthaven? Maybe in like Shoeshire, probably. That's the only ice region I can think of. Frosthaven. So, you know, Icewing, Iceblood, Bitterwind Hill, Frost. It's got to be up here somewhere. Frosthaven, right here, island. Yeah, you can search it up too. So Frosthaven, and then she'll be like over here eventually later. She takes you around the world on all these islands that don't have a token essentially. So you want to be on the lookout for that, and you should do them because she tells you about the boss that you're coming up next on the Guardian raid list. It just goes down in order. Like, I'm at Helgaia right now. I'm pretty sure after I beat Helgaia, I'll be Calventus and then Achates or whatever. And then eventually into these ones later on, and then these ones later on. Not only do you get like permanent stat pots, she also tells you about their weaknesses, how to deal with their special mechanics before even going in. And I went in all my raids blind. And I've only mostly done them once or twice. So like my average runtime is only like 10 minutes. This one was kind of fast. And then this one was 6. This one's 8 minutes. I think my longest one was actually just Helgaia, 18 minutes. Christ, 19 minutes. Yeah, this one was kind of rough because I didn't really know what was going on, but I have the quest now and I actually understand that you're supposed to bring stagger heavy shit into it and just knock this bird down and stop it from evolving, essentially, because apparently it evolves the longer you fight it or whatever, and it gets more and more powerful and dangerous, then its attacks get worse and worse and worse. So literally Luna tells you, it's like, oh, bring stagger stuff. And so, like, you know, she gives you whirlwind grenades as well. Whirlwind grenades are like stagger high level. You want to attune all your skills to like stagger high and all those things. And if you do that in like a party of 4 or even 3 or 2, and you just sort of learn the boss's like attacks and choreographs mixed with the basics that I mentioned earlier with the training room, it's going to be a breeze. I'm almost certain. But like without doing any of that, the fight just becomes incredibly harder. Just like Nacrocina or like Flame Fox Yoho. Flame Fox Yoho, when you get to this one in the Guardian Luna Investigator raid, she quite literally tells you maybe we can use the Foxfire as an advantage to us, right? So like I went solo, tried it a few times, and then wondered like what this Flame Fox is, or like the Foxfire advantage, and then it did a Fire Breath. I walked into it and I looked at my boss and I gained a buff, and it was like damage plus 150% or something for like a whole minute. I was like, yo, if 4 people grab this, you literally delete this boss. Why would it need an HP nerf? And when I learned that, I queued into a pub with like one friend, and we killed it in 6 minutes 55 seconds. And I know I did this at about 560, 540 eye level, and that's pretty much it. So some of these things aren't too bad. The only thing I found to be the worst out of my entire Guardian raid experience is Titalos. Those sandstorms are fucking annoying, okay? That's the only thing I had problems with, was Titalos, is the sandstorm shit. And that's pretty much it. So hopefully some of these basic tips help you accelerate your run much easier. And hopefully like Amazon does not need to actually nerf the game because we all kind of suck, I guess. I don't know. Like that's what it seems like, because there's nothing else. Like the only reason I can think of this rumor of that we have a 50% HP boost was because it was nerfed during the beta, because the beta was so short, so people had to eliminate these bosses so that they could check out the later parts of the content. And then when the game releases back, it just reverted back to normal, so it looks like a buff, but then it's actually reverted back to the normal HP. It's been tested. The videos are literally 1 day old. The person has like, I think it's like 1300 eye level, and then they just did a alt nuke spike on the boss. And if you do some basic math, you understand that the boss's HP is around 12 to 13 million, and a 50% boost if it was true on our server. The remaining health on the boss when they wipe themselves from the boss from the 1.1 million to 1. Like whatever some odd million damage, the difference should not be a 0.6% deviation in remaining health. We have the exact same shit as RU, and that's pretty much it. Peace.